Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Peachtree City, Georgia. We're having such a great time in the Life Changers meetings here with Pastor Cindy Black. It's Scott Webb, Pastor Ross Roberts, Pastor Joey Roberts. The meetings have been absolutely amazing. You need to go to their website and pull up the services and hear who spoke the last couple of days. So good. And if you're anywhere near, we'll be in Midland, Texas this weekend at Lifehouse Fellowship Church, Sunday morning, 2 services Sunday morning. We'll have a great time. So, with the End of Days Update, we're coming to you every week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, and specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war, because, the rapture is signless, but the second coming has tons of signs. So we look at what's going to happen just after the rapture, and I hear people every week go, well, how do you know the Ezekiel 38 war is after the rapture? Well, in this dispensation, God doesn't really intervene for Israel. He leaves it up to the church. And so once the church leaves, he has the authority where he can intervene. And what he does is he intervenes and stops Russia and those other nations that are coming against Israel. Actually, 82% of them will be pushed back, the Bible says. So everything is set up for that right now. So let's pick up to what's happened around Israel this week. So many things keep happening that point to his soon return. They're blatant, they're concise. Remember when Jesus walked into that town, the demons cried out, "Have you come to torment us before the time?" Well, it's amazing. They knew Jesus was on a schedule, but he was early. So the End of Days Update is all about seeing the finish line and hustling. It's not about an escape theology. It's about this is how close we are to the coming of the Lord. What do we have to do to get the harvest in right now as fast as we can? So around Israel, things keep happening that are blatantly pointing to his return. We talked about that train that's being built, literally a fast train being built from the airport in Tel Aviv all the way into the Old City, so people can take that train right down into the Old City and literally go to the temple. Why is that a big deal? You had Benjamin Netanyahu this week go meet with the leaders of Jordan, because the leaders of Jordan are still kind of freaking out about, is the status quo changing with the Temple Mount? Remember, everything is going to revolve around the Temple Mount. Well, they met again. For Netanyahu talked about, amazingly, don't worry, we're not going to change the status quo. But in the middle of that, you had Israelis go up on the Temple Mount today and they got arrested. So what's coming is an overall change in all of that stuff. So it'll be intriguing to see how that plays out. Usually it's a little different than what we always think. But in the midst of that, you got the United States sending Abrams tanks over to the Ukraine. You got Germany sending tanks to the Ukraine. You had Russia respond yesterday by saying, you know what, the people in those tanks are going to burn. And then Putin talked about again, this kind of blows me away that his verbiage he used. The submarine that has that 9,000 mile an hour missile is literally heading into the Atlantic Ocean to be parked off the coast of America. And those are those missiles that have been equipped with nuclear warheads. So, he's threatening nuclear war. There's a countdown to Armageddon clock that changes every time something radically happens. And it hasn't changed that much in the last 10 or 15 years. By Putin calling that out, saying that submarine's parked off the coast of America, the doomsday clock moved closer to midnight than it ever has. So, even with that, you had an earthquake this last week that happened down in New Zealand. It wasn't even felt by people above the ground. It was a 7.0 earthquake. With that, you had a report coming out that the interior of the Earth's spin rate's changing. So you got all these natural things going on, along with the nations that are going to be involved with attacking Israel just after the church leaves. I still think it's intriguing that the head of Turkey met again with the foreign minister from Russia, and their whole conversation, I love that the Jerusalem Post talks about, their whole conversation was, how do we get America out of Syria? How do we get America out of Iraq? So with all of this happening, Israel's having to figure out what it has to do to protect itself from Iran. This week you have a joint air engagement with the United States and with Israel, the largest one ever exercises. You have B-1 bombers from America. You got F-15s from Israel. Even Israel ordered 25 new F-15s from America, so they would have the more range to take out the targets they need to take out in Iran. These things are happening right in front of our eyes that play out for that. I like that Germany and France got together to talk about the whole group of the EU. They've got to make some changes, so strength will be there monetarily. And they even talked about a strength of rule, because that's the platform for the Antichrist, comes right out of the EU. So those players are doing what they're supposed to do. Turkey, Russia, and all these other players are doing what they're supposed to do. So it's amazing. We're living when all of these scriptures are coming to pass right in front of our eyes. So we always go to it. We always go back to the Word. How do we know we're living close to the coming of the Lord? I hear people say, well, you can't tell when He's coming. Actually, you can if you can read, because the signs are so blatant. So number one, you got Israel regathered as a nation. You got Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those two events won't pass away till all is fulfilled. After that, you got the Hebrew language restored. You got the Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You got predatory birds. 172 different species of predatory birds started showing up in the land of Israel. I mean, the cleanup crew is there right now. You had fish show up in the Dead Sea. You had the Dead Sea turn blood red where Sodom and Gomorrah were. That's amazing. And it happened on the Day of Atonement. So then you have foxes showing up on the Temple Mount. You have Russia went into Crimea, Russia into Ukraine. Why is that a big deal? The Bible says they'll come from the north, go straight north of Israel, and it's the Ukraine. So you have fish in position, birds in position, foxes in position, Russia in position, Turkey getting into position, still fighting with Greece about some things that are moving Turkey down into a position to join with Russia. So all of it is playing out along with the Temple Mount to show how close we are to the coming of the King. So you have men will be lovers themselves. You have selfie sticks. I mean, there's sign after sign after sign after sign after sign. It's pretty blatant that this is it. I heard people say, these signs have all happened before. No, they've never happened before. This is amazing that in our lifetime, the Bible's coming to pass right before our eyes. So after the signs, you got signals. The Bible said the planets would be for signals. You had blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles a few years ago. That's pretty remarkable to have 4 in a row like that. NASA calls it a tetrad. When's the last time you had 4 in a row like that on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So you had Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. What did he find? He found a country called America, a safe harbor for the Jews. So all of these things are taking place right before the coming of the Lord. So then you had the Bethlehem star last year, which is crazy. What happened when Jesus was born? The heavens declare the glory of God. So you had Jupiter, a king planet, Regulus, regal, king planet, Venus, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. You had those three come together at the birth of Jesus. The constellation was Virgo. This last year, NBC Nightly News said we have a celestial event. We have Jupiter, Regulus, and Venus come together. Regulus did retrograde motion and formed a crown over Jupiter. It crowned Jupiter. It's a king planet. So amazingly, NBC Nightly News said we have a celestial event. You had those three planets come together. Bethlehem star, first time in 2,000 years. What was the constellation? Leo. He's the lion of the tribe of Judah. So this is it. What do? Help our local church, help our local pastor, be more involved. We don't fit church into our life. It is our life. I mean, what is the protocol to get ready to all of a sudden go from faith to sight? We're about to see the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He gives us all of this information because He loves you so much. He wants to bless you, wants to encourage you, wants to strengthen you. He wants you in position doing His bidding right here before we see Him. Wow, we're about to see the King. We'll come back next week. We'll look at what's happened with Turkey, what's happened with Russia, what's happened with Jordan, all the different nations that are literally coming to the forefront that are going to attack Israel soon right after we leave. So we're so blessed. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.